This last week has been a very exciting week when it comes to announcements that we've gotten from Star Wars Celebration, especially when it comes to releases at Galaxy's Edge. Today we're going to look at the first one that's been released at Galaxy's Edge East over at Walt Disney World in Orlando, the new Sidious Saber. Stick around. We're going to take a look at that and compare it to the Force Effects version of it next. Welcome back. And before we get started, don't forget, hit that like and subscribe button down here below. Click the notification bell so that way you can make sure that you get updates of when the new videos are going to be coming out. With that said, let's go ahead and get started here. So this week, as many of you have probably noticed, we have gotten a ton of information that has come out from Star Wars Celebration announcements. We've gotten reveal trailers, we've got teaser trailers, we've got announcements of new stuff coming out as far as Black Series figures, helmets, I mean just all sorts of stuff. We also got announcements for new and upcoming releases of Legacy Lightsabers for all you lightsaber fans out there. The first one that we ended up getting though was the Darth Sidious Saber. Now I know it dropped yesterday on Saturday over at Galaxy's Edge East in Orlando. I don't know, I haven't seen if it's actually dropped over in West. And West has been lucky enough to get the new Ahsoka set that we over here at East have yet to see. So we are all eagerly awaiting that one. But we're going to talk about the new Darth Sidious Saber. And I know if I sound a little bit funny, please forgive me. It's because, as many of you also know, I have been sick this last week. My whole family ended up pretty much catching COVID and have been isolated in our house for the last week. And I've tested negative. I'm feeling much better, but I had to go pick up this new Darth Sidious Saber for you guys to take a look at it, get some insight, compare it to the Force Effects version that came out a number of years ago, I believe. Normally I had it up on the shelf behind me here, but as you can probably see, that space is empty. That's because it's actually here on the desk, and I'm going to do a comparison for you, comparing that Force Effects to that new Legacy Lightsaber. So let's go ahead and get started taking a look at the Saber. Now, when I went today to pick up the Saber, I did take a little bit of time to get some footage for you guys, and this is what that new Saber looks like. It is an awesome looking Saber. It looks very similar to the Force Effects version of it, but there are some subtle differences to it. Me personally, I think it looks really good, and looking at it so far in comparison to my Force Effects Saber, I actually like this one a lot better as far as looks go and some of the features that this one has compared to the Force Effects version. Now, a lot of questions have been asked. There's been rumors of a rechargeable battery. Yes, it has a rechargeable battery. I will show you that during the video here. It also, asked about, well, if it's a rechargeable battery, why did they do that? Did they make it where the electronics are better? We're going to cover looking at that as well. So let's go ahead and get looking at it. As you saw in the little video clip, this is the new box that it comes in. It is the standard gray color box. It's not the new white color that we got the Luminara and the Asajj Ventress refocused in. So we did not get a newer style box. They went ahead and stuck with the standard box. Now we did get the nice Sith logo on the front, which of course is the push button, and it does, as all the others, it does reflect also your color of your blade, which we all know Darth Sidious or Emperor Palpatine had a red blade. So we're going to go ahead and open it up and take a look at it up, in the case. Now this one is very, very shiny. So I will say there's going to be some instances where you're looking at it, it's going to be hard to be able to make some things out, possibly. Going to get some reflections, some glare, just because of the way the lights are hitting it. Unfortunately, there's not going to be a whole lot I'm going to be able to do to help with that, but I will try to make sure camera angles and stuff are as good as possible so that you don't end up getting blinded by light bouncing back in your face. So this is the new Saber. It sits inside the box very nicely. I'm going to go ahead and take it out and sit it on the counter here. And one of the questions I saw on the post that I put up there was, does it at least come with a charger? The answer is yes and no. And why I say it that way, and I'm going to pull this out, is you get a charging cord, but you don't get a plug. So you're going to be having to use, a standard charging plug for a phone, USB plug phone, to be able to charge the unit up. But it does come at least with the cord that you have. Now, I thought, okay, it's going to come with a USB-C possibly, because at least with a USB-C it would be more up to date. This is not a USB-C cord. This is a USB mini, or micro actually, a USB micro cord. So it's the much smaller, it's the version that pretty much all of your Android phones, a lot of your Bluetooth headsets and stuff like that were using prior to them coming out with USB-C. I'll give you a better look here as well. So it comes in a little bag. It's got your normal, directions or warning thing from the FCC that's inside the cases usually, or inside the envelope or the little baggie. So as you can tell, let me see if I can get it focus a little bit better for you. There you go. So those are the plugs that you have. So it's, like I said, it's your standard micro USB plug that you get with it. So they do at least give you the cable. They just don't give you the charger block or the plug to be able to charge it. So you will need to either plug it into your a phone charger, or you can plug it into the USB port of your computer, something along those lines, to be able to actually charge this particular Saber. So I've taken some pictures to show you guys in comparison as well, that I will put up to let you guys see comparison side by side of the Force Effects and the Palpatine the Legacy version here. But let's go ahead and take a look at the Legacy version. So this is what we've got as far as Legacy goes. One of the things that I like about this, and I know I'm already getting glare, is unlike the Force Effects, the blade on this one goes in like a normal blade does. You don't have to worry about taking the emitter piece off. Like, this is the display emitter piece that comes with the Force Effects, and you have to remove this because this is your display model version of it, to put the adapter for the blade to go into your Force Effects version. So you don't have to worry about that. They went ahead and made it to where it's all one piece. As far as the look goes, it looks exactly like it looks, as far as I can tell, in the movies. It looks like the ones that they have listed on StarWars.com. So a lot of the pictures that you've seen from the films. Also, it looks very similar in design to the Master Replica version, which people tend to look at that as being the most screen accurate ones. So it actually is decently accurate to the screen version. The power switch is right here, encased in the center. It is a very easily movable switch. Whereas the difference on that, on the Force Effects, and I'll go ahead and show you here the comparison side by side with the Force Effects, this one being your Force Effects. your power buttons are actually these little red and green buttons that are on the front here. Actually, they're on the underneath side, because, you know, to hold it, they would be holding it like this. So these would be your ignition switches on and off for your force effects. Now, the force effects does have a lot more of the rose gold coloring, because as you can see at the top of the emitter, it's got that rose gold across the top. The on the handle here, you can see, and I don't know if that's just fading from it being held or if it's designing that way, but there's kind of a rose goldish color here, and then on the adjacent side over there, that's very faint, but it's kind of there as you move it around. That's really, other than the screw cap, which holds the battery chassis in place on this one, that's where your screw cap is at. It's got the rose gold color on there, and I'm going to show you guys these a little bit closer on the other camera that I have here in just a second. Does come with a CoverTech wheel built in on there, where the other one has the screw piece, and this just threads right out. The whole thing is your screw piece, so it is one solid piece. So your CoverTech wheel is built into it. It's not an ugly silver or an ugly black, you know, kind of throwing things off as far as the look on the Saber itself. So it does blend in nicely, so that you don't have to worry about it. It does come with a hex head insert, or a hex head portion there, to where you can tighten this down snugly with an Allen wrench if you decide you want to do that. But this will hold this plate on, which is where your battery pack is at. This just lifts off nicely. I will tell you, make sure that you are careful when taking this off, because honestly, when I was picking this up, there was a guy that walked in. He had just purchased his. He walked outside. He pulled that screw cap off and dropped this on the ground, and then came in and claimed that it was scuffed on there. Then he made the mistake saying that he did drop it. So, you know, some people are just not honest. Anyway, just make sure you're careful with this whenever you take this off, so that you don't drop it and you get it damaged. That's where you get to your battery chassis. Now, your battery chassis sits inside. This battery chassis does not come out. I have looked at it. I've tried pulling on it. It looks like it's actually attached in there in some way, shape, or form. I'm sure at some point we'll be able to figure out how to get that battery chassis out of there, but at this point, I haven't tried. So that is where your rechargeable batteries are at. You see there, you got the little plug on the bottom side, and we're going to go ahead and take that power cord, and I'm going to plug it into the USB port, so that we can see what it does whenever we plug it in, because it looks like there's a little light on it, and this is not going to be long enough for what I need. I do have a longer cord up here that I'm going to use. Give me just a second. There we go. Because this cord at least is close by. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to plug that in, and as you can see, it will flash red whenever it's charging. Now, I'm going to leave this sitting here charging for a little while and figure out exactly what it does once it's finished charging. So stick around. I'll be back in just a second. Alright, so a little over an hour and a half later, it's finally finished charging. I was starting to wonder how long it was going to take, and to be able to show you what it looks like when it does finish charging, but it finally did. I just noticed, and you get a solid red light. I wasn't sure if it would change to a different color or if it was just going to be, you know, just a solid color or not. So that's what you get whenever it does finally finish charging. So going back to it again, the battery pack does not come out that I've been able to see. Based on the way it looks, it may be that the entire chassis is all one piece inside as far as the electronics chassis, because the normal length of a battery chassis would put it roughly about ending where this power switch is at. So I'm thinking that the rechargeable batteries in there are a smaller size battery. I don't know if there's one or multiples. Without trying to completely disassemble this lightsaber to be able to figure that out, I don't know that that we'll actually be able to provide that information to you. I will say though, during that little bit of a break in between, you know, for you for a couple seconds, but for me, like I said, an hour and a half, I did notice on the box it does say on the bottom that they recommend a 5-volt and a 0.5 amp charging block to charge this Saber. So I would not recommend using anything over that, because you may overcharge or damage the battery inside. So make sure that you definitely look at the type of charging block that you're using to make sure it's the right amperage and everything for you to be able to charge the Saber properly. So I'm going to go ahead and put this back together here, and then we're going to get a good side-by-side comparison of this new Legacy version versus the Force Effects. Got the two Sabers here for you to take a look at side by side, so that way you can kind of get an idea of them. Now, if you're wondering, okay, comparison wise in size, how do these two compare versus another Saber? You know, so you can kind of get an idea. Well, I know that most collectors have one of the Anakin / Rey / Luke or a Darth Vader version Legacy Lightsaber. So you've kind of got an idea size-wise of what that size looks like. I'm going to go ahead and put this in the screen as well, so that way you can kind of see comparison lengthwise. And I'm having trouble seeing my screen because I got my camera right in front of my face as well. How they look in comparison. You can see lengthwise on there. If we get them fairly close on there, it is much smaller than we would anticipate. This one in the middle being the Legacy versus the Black Series, or the Force Effects Black Series on the bottom. So it is a much smaller lightsaber in comparison to other sabers as far as size goes. As far as overall width around the hand, it does feel like they're both fairly close in size when it comes to the two of them. Now, to get these kind of lined up here, let's see, there we go, lining up based on the very end here, you can see there is a substantial difference in length, and I'm going to actually put pictures up here for you over top of this, so you can see a comparison as far as a better angle side by side. I'm going to also show you the different sides of it. So we're going to look at the top where the power switch is at. Then we're going to rotate over to the side where the red buttons are. We'll then rotate over to the bottom side underneath where your fingers would actually grip, and then the other side where the green button is at. So you can see a comparison in coloration and difference in sizing as far as what the two of them look like. Now, back here at the other camera here, I call it my kyber camera, I currently have the display emitter. So let me slide these down a little bit so you can see this angle. I have the display emitter on the end here, just because I wanted you to be able to get an idea size-wise. Now, if I can put them close as far as lining up the edges, you can see that this one here does stick out slightly farther. Measurements wise, we're really close in sizing. So we're looking at about 8 3/4 to maybe 8 7/8 inches on the new Palpatine that we have up here, and then looking in comparison to the Force Effects, we're looking at right at 9 about 1/8 inches long. So you're looking at a little bit, about 1/4 of an inch, maybe a little bit more difference in overall length between the two sabers. Because I know that, you know, some of the comments that I've seen, people have said, oh, well, it looks like it's much larger than we expected. Honestly, it's very hard to be able to go in and put the electronics in needed to be able to operate these sabers. I mean, even a lot of your custom sabers, you know, the chassis that are inside those, there's a lot of electronics inside that to be able to make everything fit. I don't personally have a Palpatine or anything to compare it to in the custom realm, but looking at it compared to the Hasbro version, they are very, very similar in size in comparison on there. Now, doesn't really make a difference. I'm going to go ahead and on here and take the display emitter off, and I'm going to put the blade retention emitter back on, just so we can kind of compare evenly. And when I made these measurements, I did make them both with the emitter on the Force Effects, the emitter ring, versus using the display version on there, because the display version is longer, so it would have made it even longer lengthwise in comparison. And I wanted to kind of get more apples to apples, you know, for you guys. If we get it to line up to where we are right at the edge, and I'm gonna take the blade plug out so we don't have that as a something that's kind of throwing your eyes off on it, but getting them to where they're pretty well close to each other as far as the edge there, you can see most of the pieces do line up. You just have a little bit longer length on that Force Effects. Now, how are they different as far as blade performance and colorations go? Well, let's take a look at that now. So, grabbing the blade for the Legacy version, go ahead and get this in, and let me get the other camera out of my way here, so that way I can see. We got that, and you can see, of course, the blade goes in much easier in the Legacy version than it does going into the Force Effects, and I'll show you what I mean. So those of you that haven't or don't have a Force Effects lightsaber that uses the blades are very, very similar. Matter of fact, to show you, I'll go ahead and do a comparison showing you here. The blades are very, very similar. I mean, for me, to the point to where sometimes when I'm going and grabbing blades, I've actually grabbed the Force Effects blade in the stack that I have. But the real big difference is the coloration of the notches. On your Legacy or Sabi's blades, you have the silver notches on there. On the Force Effects, you have it's all one solid piece that goes in. Also, where those notches are line up differently. To give you an idea, this is the notch right here that is for the Force Effects blades, and for those sabers, so there is a drastic difference in the location on there. So you can't use the same blade in both a Force Effects and a Legacy or Sabi, just because the notches are different as far as those positions go. As far as the bottom goes on those blades, you can see you've got the 3-pin connector on your Legacy, and then you've got almost more like a PCB board version, like you would have in a NeoPixel, but just sectional on your Force Effects. But your Force Effects goes in a lot different. So let me go ahead and, just because I don't want it rolling around, go ahead and get that locked back into the Legacy. With your Force Effects, you have to take the retention ring off and then slide the blade in, and it is snug to get it in there. I will say that, because there we go, and you can see how much farther it sticks out. And then you have to slide the ring over, and this one is not wanting to go in all the way for me for whatever reason. I don't know why. Oh, this might be the wrong blade for this one. Let me look in just a second. So, it's something, just as we were just saying, I think one of the things also that you really have to pay attention to when you have a stack of blades like I do is you have to watch out for which blade you're grabbing for what saber. Now, these are both Force Effects. You can see one is much larger as far as the insert is than the other one. This one is actually for an upcoming review, which is going to be for my Darth Revan that's actually behind me on the shelf. This is actually the one for the Palpatine. It is much smaller as far as the size goes. So we'll go ahead now and get this one slid into place. So unlike your Legacies, you can not interchange your blades when it comes to your Force Effects sabers. They are going to be different. So got batteries inside the Force Effects now. Go ahead and turn it on, and it does have a much smoother on and off. You do get electric on there by hitting the green button. The red button, you'll get laser fire reflection. The tip of the blade, if you hold that down, you get the burn effect. So if you're trying to, like you've seen the movie, you get the burning effect when they're trying to burn through a door or something like that. So you have that on there, and then if you hold the power button down, you get the electric version. Then you tap that red button, or the green button, I'm sorry, on there, and it will turn on and off. It's got a nice smooth activation and smooth turning off. Compared to, and this is where I'm going to say, I was really hoping that Disney did some upgrades. And I know that was a question that was asked. Why put a rechargeable pack inside a hilt if you're not going to upgrade the electronics? And that is a very good question. They honestly didn't. It powers on the same as far as the on and off. It still goes sectional. As far as movement, it is not smooth swing. It doesn't respond any faster than any of the other Legacy sabers. So there's no real upgrade to that. So one of the only things I'm really seeing, there are some parts to it. You can see The biggest one big difference there is the contour of where you hold on, and meaning here where your hand goes and your fingers. I mean, you got a nice place there for your pinky and, you know, your thumb to hold it as Palpatine would have, this being the Legacy, whereas you don't really have that nice contour on the Force Effects. It's a little thicker, and I think that's because it has that removable battery pack. This one being to where it's actually internal on there. They were able to contour it a little bit better, maybe because of the way that they designed it inside to get all the electronics to fit in there the way they wanted it to. You've got a much nicer contour to the shape of the saber on the Legacy than you do the Force Effects. So then the question comes up, which one sounds better? Well, you've got your typical, you know, power sound from the Legacy, and then your power off. It kind of almost has a sound like you're swinging the lightsaber whenever it turns off. You know, a movement of the lightsaber. Listen again. Got your turn on. Kind of sounds like a clash sound. Then you have your normal power sound of it. But then your turn off has a whirr, which sounds more alike, you know, a saber being moved. Force Effects powers on, has a very subtle hum, so there is a much louder volume on the Legacy lightsaber than there is the Force Effects. And then you have the typical just de-energize or powering off sound on the Force Effects. So audio wise, I think the audio is much better on the Legacy saber than it is on the Force Effects saber, so I think there is an improvement there. The Legacy saber doesn't have the quality of blade effects that your Force Effects has. So the Force Effects has that on the Legacy when it comes to how does the blade perform, how does it react. So you know the other thing is you're going to have multiple blades with the Force Effects. Now this particular saber I did not get brand new, being the Force Effects. I got it, I believe, in a trade with a guy on one of the Facebook groups. It wasn't brand new. I'm not going to get into situations with it, but honestly, I think if I had the choice myself between the two, Legacy versus Force Effects, I do believe I would take the Legacy over the Force Effects, mainly because of the fact that I do have a JMU blade. That is one big thing, because the JMU blade for me makes it to where the functions and features that this has, other than the laser deflect or the blade burn option feature that's on there, you know, some of the effects that you get with that on the blade, it makes it to where, you know, that blade side of it, Force Effects does have has a little bit of a lead on that versus the Legacy. But overall, I feel that based on the look, based on pictures that I've seen of comparing what it looks like to the one that's actually used in the movie, I think the Legacy is very, very close as far as movie accuracy goes. It may not be 100% accurate, so, you know, there's always going to be those guys out there that they want it to be 100% movie accurate, so they're going to want the master replicas, which is fine. That's great. If you're a Legacy collector like myself, and moving into custom lightsabers here shortly, This is a great buy for, I think, after tax and everything, I paid like right at $171. It was just shy of that to be able to purchase this saber. Very beautiful saber. Love the chrome. Love the accents. I love the way it feels in my hand. I feel like holding it, I have more control over this one than I do the Force Effects. The Force Effects, it's too girthy in the bottom down here, where you got a nice contour to the pinky on the bottom of the Legacy. So my personal opinion, if I was going to buy one of these two based on the cost and price, I would go for the Legacy. If you're somebody who's going to be displaying the saber most of the time and occasionally showing it off as far as coloring and blade and everything to friends, not having to change the emitter like I just did is a nice feature. You ain't got to go through all of that garbage to be able to put the blade in and do all of that stuff. Plus, having the rechargeable batteries in this now, I think is going to be a game changer for Legacy. I know that I've heard that there's going to be a lot of the sabers moving forward that are going to have that feature. I'm hearing that it's possible the Qui-Gon Jinn that has been announced coming in the future will have the rechargeable batteries in it as well. I think that's going to be really good for future designs. Because if they can figure out a way in there to be able to align the rechargeable batteries, and if you don't have to pull everything apart and use lithium batteries so that way they don't leak either, I think that's going to make it to where they're going to be able to make a lot more of the sabers more size-wise accurate compared to other ones. So I know this has been a long video. I do apologize for that, but I wanted to get as much information to you guys as possible. I know I had not done a review on the Force Effects Palpatine, mainly because I had heard that this one was going to come out at some point. I wasn't sure when it was going to come out, so I was kind of holding off. But I wanted to be able to get you guys a good review, good detailed review, because I know in the poll that I had you guys take, that many of you participated in, and I do thank you for that. The one thing that you guys really wanted to see was more in-depth, more detailed reviews of the sabers themselves. So that's what I'm going to do going forward, is try to give you guys even more detailed information on these. Use it as you will, watch as much as you want or as little as you want. That's your choice. But if you have this saber already, leave me some comments down below. Let me know what you think about it. Do you like it? Do you like some of the features? What do you think compared to the Force Effects? If you have the Force Effects, are you considering getting a Legacy lightsaber version of the Darth Sidious, as they're calling it? And what are your thoughts? Love to be able to see that. Again, I do thank you guys for joining me. Don't forget, again, hit that like and subscribe button down below. I am trying desperately to get us up to that first 500 mark. We are getting very close. We're getting close to 400 now, so that I can do that first Legacy lightsaber giveaway for the Cal Kestis that I have. And going forward, I'm wanting to be able to get up to 1,000, so that way, honestly, I can start monetizing some of these videos and making it to where I can afford more of these kind of things for you guys, because all of these are coming out of my own pocket. Of course, they are part of my own collection, but it'll definitely help me out being able to provide you guys with more information. So if you like the video, please hit that like button down below, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends that may be Star Wars fans. They may go ahead and like the channel as well and subscribe, and that'll definitely help us to get further along so that we can get more and more content out for you guys as we go forward. I've got a lot of stuff planned, a lot of things that I picked up at May the 4th that I was hoping to have done already, but due to sickness, haven't been able to get those done. So look for those coming up really, really soon. And Don't forget to double check the socials. They're going to come up across the bottom down here for you. That's what, of course, like I've always said, that's where you're going to get the most up-to-date notifications of when reviews like this are going to come out. So thanks again for joining me. I appreciate you guys showing up and taking the time out of your busy schedule to listen to me ramble. And as always, may the Force be with you.